Hi, Root&Connect here on another walk because we are being blessed with the sun after some crazy weather. We've got rain and hail and then some sun, and then it's been all over the place. As I go on these walks and even runs, sometimes I'm trying to run, I do some of my best thinking. And I'm going to bring up a subject that, might be like a little, it's like one of those subjects that people don't want to talk about. I don't want to say faux pas, but maybe I'm wrong, but it's one of those subjects that people don't like to talk about because it's essentially like a topic that involves sharing dirty laundry that could potentially create shame for the person sharing, and then also create fear for the person sharing that I'm going to be seen as imperfect, or that I'm going to be seen as less. But since I'm working on this whole courage thing, I'm working on just speaking my truth, I want to bring up fighting with your spouse, because it's a real thing, right? You don't even have to be married. You could be in a relationship, a partnership, but once you get married and you're there in the marriage for a while, things just naturally start popping up. Like his behavioral patterns and my behavioral patterns start to clash. His emotional patterns and my emotional patterns, his thought patterns, my thought patterns, they clash. And one of the insights that I had was that, essentially my husband, he plays out emotional patterns and behaviors that were modeled to him when he was growing up, right? So I'm not exactly sure, but I want to say that for me, and what was modeled to me, is that my parents did not get taught how to express emotion with consciously or with intention, right? The way that they learned from their parents was that emotions are shared, when they're happening, and that usually there's no naming of an actual emotion. What's actually being said is a lot of words and a lot of things related to, right, an emotion, right? So it's like, let's say anger is speaking, or sadness, or hurt. Those emotions are saying a lot of things, but they're not actually right, being named as the reason that I'm yelling at you right now is because what you said, or what you did, or what you didn't say, or what you didn't do hurt me, right? And so, for me, it was like, emotions aren't named. They're not explained. They're just felt. And usually those emotions were sad and angry, right? Or even depression, or fear, lots of fear, right? But they were expressed in ways that didn't make sense to me, right? And for a child can oftentimes create a sense of confusion and instability. And none of this, I want to just say, none of this is done consciously. This is all unconscious behaviors based on learning, right? For instance, learned helplessness. That's a learned behavior. Learned helplessness is I am a victim. Things happen to me and I have no power, I have no control to change what happens to me, and all I can do is just sit here and be a victim. That's something that's modeled and learned, right? My husband, on the other hand, what I think is that it's possible that he experienced the same thing where emotions were not named right? They were not identified and explained. They were suppressed, right? They were suppressed. They were ignored, stuffed, dismissed, right? And so there's two different behaviors that I'm talking about here. There is the emotions that express themselves through angry words, right? Or actions. And, you know, that behavior is more like aggressive, right? It can be perceived, it can be felt as more aggressive. Versus the other option, which is when I feel emotions, I'm just not going to talk about them, and I'm going to withdraw and shut down, right? I'm just going to completely dismiss, try to avoid, I'm going to ignore, versus, right, the other option, which is to react, explode, cry, yell, scream, right? So I'm bringing this up because I think it's important to just name this, that when you are in a partnership or marriage, whatever you want to call it, right? One person's learning what was modeled to them is going to oftentimes be very different, sometimes the polar opposite of what the other person's learning, what was modeled to them. And then you know, those two people come together to try to create this thing we call a relationship, right? Like a boat where we're going to live on this boat together. We're going to relate every day, even when we don't want to. Some days we love each other and we really want to be with each other, and it's just so fun to be with you. And other days the ship is really rocky and the waves are really big, and sometimes feel really overwhelming, confusing. And so, yeah, I just want to name that because, you know, as I said before, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts or a lot of things right now in my life, because as a therapist, I'm listening to people. And so then I want to take a break from listening. But then, you know, oftentimes I get these insights and I just want to name them. Like, I just want to put this out there and say, hey, like, go back to your partner and talk about, how did your parents deal with their feelings when you were younger? How did your parents deal with your feelings when you were younger? Were they even talked about? Were they validated? Right? And then coming together to have this discussion can be really like eye-opening and heart-opening for both of you. And it, you know, I see it as sort of like a first step in like trying to repair and trying to understand, validate, there's that word again, and trying to work on that deeper connection. You know, intimacy, emotional intimacy, right? With the people and the person that we love. Okay, thanks for listening. Shout out to Jesus, because Easter is this Sunday, and I love Jesus, and I'm very grateful for all that he sacrificed for us humans. And so for those of you that celebrate Easter, happy Easter. For those of you that don't, that's okay. You know, Jesus is love. I think we all celebrate love. So, all right, cheers. Bye.